Hello.
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 Welcome to the Women Who Create podcast.
A no-nonsense podcast for women in creative business.
I'm Debbie Duda.
And I'm Amy Phipps.
And this episode, we're talking about goal setting and the beginning of New Year's.
As per usual, you can find all the show notes and links at womenwhocreateuk.com. And if you love us, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher.
If you can work out how to do it.
Or say it.
Or even say it. So this is our shorter mini-sode for 15 minutes, and we're just going to be talking about the beginning of the new year, because we're kind of halfway into January. It's a new year, it's 2018. If you're listening to this in another day, it's the year when Australian flu hit the world, and so we're all trying to not get Australian flu at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Have you got Australian flu yet?
I have got a bit of a sore throat today, but hopefully it's not Australian.
Like, stay away from her and the Australian flu. And we were going to talk a bit about goal setting. And putting those things out there for the new year. So have you been goal setting?
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
I'm on the team of keeping my expectations maybe a bit more on the low level and not being too strict with my goal settings, because I really struggled in December. So I'm still kind of trying to get back up to a level of feeling on top form, and the thought of just setting the strict goals that I would normally do, I'm not feeling it this year. So I'm being really gentle and easing myself into it really slowly. I have got some, and so far they're getting ticked off, but perhaps not how they would usually be.
Yeah, fair enough. I was just thinking though as well, like, a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's a new year, do you feel it, the energy, the vibe, blah, blah, blah. But actually, there's lots of things happening in people's lives all the time, and just because the new year happened doesn't mean that your life kind of stops and then you put this reset button and then you start. Like,
it's
not stuff happening in your family, in your life, in December, it doesn't suddenly go away because it's the 1st of January and you're like, press the reset button and everything's fine and I'm really happy now. Like, it carries on. And I think some people are like so enthusiastic about it, because I've bumped into people and they're like, oh my God, can you feel the energy? And maybe I did feel the energy for the first week, and then it was just like, oh, it's just another week.
Back
just
into
back
the
into it
routine
again. And I felt like a fraud going, yeah, I can feel the energy. But I don't know if I really could quite in that moment. I think there's the expectation.
I think there's two quite distinct bands of people this year. I think there's definitely the goal getters and the goal setters, and then there's the
goal getters and the goal setters. I like it.
Or the gold diggers. Gold diggers.
That's
a hashtag. We should use
it. Gold diggers.
And then there's definitely the more low level kind of like, oh, I'm not feeling it yet, but I'm getting there slowly, and I think that's good. And not comparing themselves and trying not to get freaked out by the jazzy on the goal people. Yes, for sure. And I've been like watching, there's been a few things, like I did feel really inspired, and I got loads of like old magazines out and did some like cutting and pasting. Your mood boards and stuff.
My mood board, and that was really fun. But then I was talking about, oh, I wanted to do this goal, and they were like, is it on your mood board? And then I was like, oh, no, it's not. So maybe it's not going to happen. Like, oh, it's not on the mood board. I think the mood board for me was more like the way I want to feel about things.
Yeah, and getting into a frame of mind, isn't it? It's setting yourself up and then not restricting yourself to the goals, to the mood board, and just having that as a guiding kind of force. And also, I did that in November. I did that nice mood board that I did after I had a session with you, and did my ideal client and all of that. And I feel like I did quite a lot of that stuff, maybe a bit too early, and perhaps that's why I'm feeling a bit like, I don't want to do it again. Maybe I'm working to a different new year.
Maybe. Well, like, isn't it like the Chinese New Year around February time? So it's just a made-up construct anyway, really, isn't it? So we feel this like, oh God, I'm getting really croaky. The need to be all jazzy and exciting. And I think, if you don't feel like that, that's also fine. And you don't, like, it's cold and it's grey.
And it's still midwinter.
It's raining and it's still midwinter.
It's still in hibernation, really. And I think that should also be reflected in what you're doing. And I don't know about you, but I didn't have a particularly party Christmas and New Year. I was
quiet,
a low-key kind of vibe there as well. I think for me that's kind of maybe what's playing through into this year. And who knows, when the mornings finally get lighter, bring it on,
and a little bit of
hopefully that will change things, but who knows again. And it's about not being hard on yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I find that like spring energy a lot more invigorating when you're like, you can go and like pick daffodils and like start jumping around like a spring lamb in like long grass, and suddenly you're like contemplating like, could you actually have a picnic at lunchtime? That's when I get like excited, and then I'm like, what am I going to do in the summer? And I get fired up with all the possibilities. I feel like that's a really good time for me for doing that. But I saw people online doing this like blind mood boards. Have you heard of this?
No, what is it?
So I don't know much about it, and I did a slight giggle. So it's where you get the magazine, and rather than kind of preempt what you're going to cut out, so you're like, I really want to go to New York, so you're just looking for pictures of New York, so you're looking for things. Yeah. The idea is that you close your eyes, and I think you flick through the magazine, and you wait for the magazine to kind of speak to you, and then you just maybe jam your finger on and pick a picture, and then that's the picture that goes on your mood board. I don't know if I've totally got it right, but it's like blind mood boarding.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, people do things different ways, don't they? But that just sounds a bit too. I'm not down with that.
It did make me giggle, but I love it. It's great to try different things.
Yeah, no, it is. It absolutely is. But
I don't know if I want to be in a room full of people with my eyes closed, flipping through a magazine, just starving in the dark. Like, I don't know if I wanted to do that. But they were doing it really earnestly and talking about the amazing effect that could be, that somehow the universe would, and they were running,
the universe
they were doing,
But I guess that's really difficult, because although there's that element of surprise and the universe is making the decision for me, it's kind of not, because you've probably chosen which magazines. So with that respect, you're already narrowing it down.
You take your magazines to the event and then you throw them all in a handle, and then you just
I didn't realise,
because that's the other thing.
I didn't realise,
because if you take the magazines and you're like, I like Vogue and I want a Chanel handbag or something, or if it's like, I don't know, like the Lonely Planet travel magazine, which I was flicking through the other day, and I was like, there's no point buying this, I'm not going to do any of this stuff right now. But it was, but if I bought that, I'd be like, woo, it's all about the travel. So almost you're like preempting your goals. But in my head, it's like, well, your goals are preempted by the things you want to do. And like, what if I flick through a page and then I hit on I don't know, something, and I'm like, I don't know, like, it just,
you get
like a cruise round somewhere, and I'm like, I don't want to go on a cruise.
I definitely want to go on a cruise.
But then the universe has told me that I want to go on a cruise, so then I have to stick it on my mood board.
You found my dream holiday then.
You want to go on a cruise?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Like a Nordic fjord.
Yes, no, cruise. Exactly, like a Nordic, let's do it together.
Let's do that. Like, let's do a live recording while we're
But not like just sort of pulling up at Benidorm and stuff. Cruise. There's different cruises, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. I had a point then and it's totally gone. No, it's gone.
Oh no! I bet it was like the best.
It's probably the best
thing ever.
Podcast, yeah.
But if that works for you and that like helps your creative juices go, helps you think like in a different way about what you want in the future.
And it's working creatively, isn't it? And
yes,
and
exactly.
I guess there's an element of that's sharing ideas and also I guess when you're goal setting, and they might change every year. They might be like an evolution of the previous year's goals. I've definitely got a few that I'm just kind of ramping up from last year.
Yeah, for sure.
But regardless of what you're writing down, there's always that element of flexibility. But like you said, they're always in the back of your mind because you've thought about them enough. They're important enough that you're not just going to forget them because you find a random picture in a magazine or you haven't stuck it on your mood board.
Because I still know that it's there in my head.
Yeah, and it might just come up in a different way. And I think,
and it's easy for me to kind of laugh at people a little bit with their eyes closed, flicking through the magazine. But maybe I need to go and try it out for myself and see what it's like. So if you've been doing that and I've offended you, I am very sorry.
Invite us
to come
party.
and flick through some magazine with our eyes closed.
So can I ask you, with your goal setting, do you do seasonal goal setting, or do you just do like New Year goals for the whole year? Because I tend to find that I have a few main goals, but then I like not monthly but seasonally. So I've been trying to work on a more seasonal kind of calendar. So I do a spring, summer, autumn, winter type goal.
Yeah.
To try and fit in a little bit better with, as I'm getting older, things like the weather and the dark is really affecting me. So I know that this time of year I'm a bit shit. But like you said, when it comes to spring, summer, I'll have way more energy and I will have a different kind of work routine. So I'm trying to fit them around that. I don't know. I've heard quite a lot of people talking a bit more openly about that. And I've also joined an online course that my friend is running, which I'll pop in the show notes, which is working your business and goals to do with kind of like emotional seasons as well as weather and
tell me more about these emotional seasons. What is that?
Would like to do with
my period.
Yeah, your period. Yeah.
Okay. Like actually recognizing
and like your hormonal patterns and recognizing how the ebb and flow of your energy throughout the month and throughout the year and how that affects your work.
I have an app called the hormone horoscope, and it tells you on each day, it gives you like a little kind of horoscope on each day of whether your estrogen levels are rising or lower, like whether you'd want to crave chocolate more, if you're like more tired and stuff like that. So I've really enjoyed that app because it's like, oh yeah, I do feel really tired. Oh yeah, it's because I'm on my period and everything's coming out of me, and that's where all my energy's going. So that's
really interesting as well.
It's really interesting.
And I think, I mean, I'm sure it's an age-old kind of practice that you're more in tune with certain things, and some people are just generally more in tune with the seasonality of themselves. But I'm really interested to see this year how I can do a bit more of that going forward, because I'm definitely struggling with the darkness and the seasons, and I'm taking extra vitamin D and all of that. But you know, there's only so much that you can change, and actually perhaps building our businesses around that is the way forward. And the idea you said previously about others and you, I've referred to it as your 6-hour day, but maybe it's like a 3-day week, or there's this ideal amount of time that we're meant to be working, or days and weeks and whatever, and maybe it's a different shift into working seasonally. And what could that look like for women in business who want to shape their businesses that way? That's really interesting, I think.
I think it is really. I did read a book about this kind of seasonal hormonal thing, and it was even suggesting, like, if you were going to present a presentation, do it in this week. If you were going to do your accounts, do it in this week, because you're more likely to want to get into the nitty gritty of stuff. Like this week, don't go networking because you're probably not going to have any energy for any extra stuff. And I think actually just sort of honouring those changes and trying to be flexible and allowing your work pattern to fit around that means that when you're feeling really high, you've got things that suit that moment. But when you're feeling a bit hibernatory, which is kind of like the winter thing, that you give yourself like a break and maybe I don't know, don't do as much work or don't go out as much or don't expect as much. As for goal settings, you were asking, like, do I make these massive year-long goals or lifelong goals and stuff? I have like things that I've wanted to do for ages, like travel around the west coast of America. Those kind of like, oh my god, that would be so cool. And ever since I got into like Sex and the City years ago, I really want to go to New York and like have a Manhattan, like, and they're just things that will always be there until I do them, essentially. And I'm not like, it has to be this year. Like, that's fine, but you know, they're just on my kind of bucket list, I suppose, if you like. For like work goals, my brain doesn't really work much further than 3 months ahead. So I'm like a big proponent. I really love the idea of the 90-day goals.
Oh, good.
Where you only work to a 3-month schedule. So you're like, what could I achieve? Where do I want to be in 3 months? And then how can I get there? And I just find that like a lot more manageable.
Me too.
I remember when I started out, like, you know, when I first started my business, people were talking about like 5-year plans and 2-year
Yeah.
plans and like business strategies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know where I'm going to be in 6 months.
I know,
How am
yeah.
I going to write a 5-year plan? And luckily, I never applied for any funding, and nobody ever, I
No.
didn't ever go down that route. And I just sort of built my business from scratch, from just, you know, just bumping into people really, essentially, and taking opportunities as they came. I think if I'd gone down that route, it would have been stupid, because it wouldn't be where I am now. Like, I'm not where I thought I would
No,
be,
hell no,
because
me
I've
neither.
changed, and I've
Yeah.
met people, and opportunities
Yeah.
are presented themselves. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes for those business things, you might have an idea of where you might like to be, but actually things that you can actually work on, like goals that you can actually break down into tasks.
Yeah, into tasks.
Which is what a goal is really. Otherwise, it's just a dream. Then kind of those 3 months, and then that fits in with the seasonal thing, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it really does. And yeah, and I also, yeah, I used to do the whole, right, or I have previously, when I had the studio, we had to do all of that to get bank
Yeah,
loans and
for
stuff.
sure.
So we had to do all the calculations and all of that, and it was so
Just
dry.
making up numbers in
And it just-
thin air as well,
And
aren't
it
you? Like,
just, you know, creative careers, you have to allow for flexibility, like you say. And even in the past 12 months, although I had certain things that I wanted to do, I didn't imagine that I would be doing what I'm doing now, like to that extent. So yeah, I agree. Like those 3-month chunks fit in so well and allow for that flexibility, and like you don't know who you're going to meet. So that's
and also I think, so I know like where I want my business to be by March,
Yeah.
and I know like I've got things that I have to do to get me there.
Yeah.
And maybe that March will bleed into April, and that's not the end of the world.
No.
But also, why I think that 3-month thing is really good, because at the end of that 3 months, you're like, oh my God, it's like another new year. You're like, where am I? Am I where I wanted to be?
Yeah.
How's my mental health? How am I feeling about that?
Yeah.
Have I got enough? So you almost have like a check-in with yourself before
really
you
good.
set the next 3-month goals. Where if you leave it, if you can only have a check-in with yourself in January, and you're just like working hell for leather.
And also
not
that shit,
sustainable.
that's just, you just
It's
put
shit.
so much stress on yourself
Yeah.
to have achieved these huge
Perfection.
things, and perfection, comparing yourself to everybody else. Like, oh, don't do it to yourself.
Don't do it
Don't do it.
to
Just,
yourself.
like you say, have a thing, but yeah, break it down.
Break it down.
Break it down.
So should we leave this podcast there? Don't do it to yourself.
Don't do it.
Just sort of set attainable goals that you can actually break down. So I really like, when I went to Morocco, we kind of hung out with some Berber dude for a while, and he had this saying like, slowly put the camel in the pot, which is that like, you can't eat a camel in one sitting. You have to smash it up with a hammer and break it up into smaller bits and put it in your tagine pot, and then you can eat it, and maybe that camel lasts a year. And that's like, with big goals, you know, you just have to focus on the bits that you can do now, the bits that are attainable, and just sort of jigsaw piece that together. So slowly put the camel in the pot, do your 90-day goals. If you're not feeling super cool at the beginning of 2018, that's fine.
That's
it's just life.
Yeah.
It's just life.
Yeah, and don't feel like you have to be doing all of that because you see other people doing it.
No.
It might be that you've been really inspired by something that you were working on last year, and you want to carry that forward as well. Like,
yeah. Maybe you have no goals.
maybe you have no goals.
Maybe
Maybe
you're just drifting and having
maybe
a
you're
nice
having
time.
January off.
Like the power of now.
Yeah.
Just concentrate on now.
Yeah.
But so thank you very much for listening to us.
Yes.
That was fantastic. If you loved it, leave us a review. We'd love that. And we're back in 2 weeks' time, where we're talking to Trisha Barker, who's an imposter syndrome coach.
Can't
So
wait.
that'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.